Welcome to the Legal CFO.
Welcome back to the show where clarity meets profitability. This is the Legal CFO with Ryan Kimler, founder of Net Profit CFO. If you're a law firm owner looking to get a handle on your finances, grow your bottom line, and finally take control of your numbers, then I tell you, you are in the right place. Each episode, Ryan breaks down the business side of law with straightforward strategies to help your firm run smarter, earn more, and scale with confidence. My name is Kevin Rosenquist, and today we're talking about how to build profits that last, even when you're not the one driving every decision. Ryan, good to see you.
Yes, great to be here and excited to dive into this today.
When you look at firms that have been able to grow consistently year after year, what's the common thread in how they manage their finances?
Common thread is they've got the right team in place to help them, the right positions, and then they also have the right processes in place and a system for consistently reviewing all of their numbers and then going and taking action on what needs changed.
We've talked in the past about, owners who feel like their firm can't run without them. It's certainly not a problem only in the law field. It's all over the place. What's the financial risk of staying super involved with every decision that is made?
Yeah, obviously, limited growth probably is number one. Limited, profit growth as well. And, if your business is dependent on you and you're dependent upon the income, there's always, we talk about what happens if you get hit by a bus, right? What is the plan? What happens if you're no longer at the firm? And, that's a really extreme scenario. But in the world that we live in, we all went through a really, really extreme scenario just a few years ago when we had COVID and it pretty much shut down everything. So you never know what's coming. You never know when life might hit you. And so just being prepared and not being the only driver of the results, really, really important.
We'll talk about numbers and strategies and stuff like that, but I'm curious just from sort of an overall larger picture scenario. Do you feel when you find CEOs that just cannot delegate, cannot step away from making all the decisions, is it just that they want the business to be so good that they feel like they just, it's all hands on deck, they have to be there, or is it really about relinquishing control?
I think it's both sometimes, right? If it's your name on the door, the worked product that goes out the door is what you're responsible for, right? And that can be a big responsibility, especially when you start thinking about reputation. And I think that can absolutely lead to, I've got to control this, right? I've got to make sure that it's right. And I've got to make sure that it was done the way that I want it done. So it can be a combination of both. And ultimately, as you grow your firm, that can really be crippling. There's going to be a point where you can't wear every hat and you've got to give something up and you've got to give some decision responsibilities to other people at your firm.
Yeah, if not just for the efficiency of the firm, but also for your own sanity.
Yes, absolutely.
Mm-hmm. Are there any systems or reports that a firm should have in place first before it really can operate without the owner's constant oversight?
Yeah, so I would say anything that you're going to delegate, you've got to have reporting on, and you've got to have key metrics for what the standard is. So let's dive into an example here real quick. Let's just say right now you as the owner are doing all of the marketing and all of the sales. You're out networking, getting new clients, and then when they come in for consultations, you're the one that runs those and closes the deals, with pricing and agreements and all that, right? If you wanted to delegate that, you've got to have a baseline, got to have the standard. If you're going to hire somebody, how many leads are you expecting that they're going to generate in a month, right? If they're going to be in the closing room and do sales and consultations, how many consultations do you expect that they do a month? How many of those consultations do you expect to close, right? So no matter what you want to delegate, whatever part of your business that it is, you've got to have those baseline key metrics that you can watch and make sure that they're going well. Because if they're not going well, it's your job as the owner to be a resource and step back in and really help them meet the numbers that need to be met.
Are there certain signs that might show that leadership and accountability are not being spread out effectively or are being spread out effectively?
I think the biggest thing is take a vacation as an owner. You're there's going to be problems that come up while you're gone. That's a really good way to figure out where are the weak spots and where do we need to improve. And then and definitely keep tracking from a numbers perspective as well, right? Um, my law firms that have attorneys leading them, that they're not out of everything yet, and especially if they're not out of heavy billing yet, we definitely see a dip in revenue when they go on vacation, right? We see a dip in their sales and what they're billing their clients. And so, taking that short break from your firm can really start to pull out and highlight where are the areas that we need to improve.
In practical terms, what does it mean to turn profit into a process instead of a one-time outcome?
So a great example of that would be, around your billing, right? What is the process that you have in place that then is going to drive revenue, that then is going to drive your profits, right? So anywhere where money is handled, I think you've got to have processes around, because that's going to drive consistency. Same way with how you bill your clients and how you track hours. Again, having those SOPs and having those standards within your firm is going to help you delegate and scale as you hire, and going to make things really, really consistent versus just a one-time thing.
At what stage do you believe a firm should start thinking about long-term stability or even succession? And how does that connect to their current profit margins?
Yeah, it definitely depends on what you want as an owner, but I do think the sooner the better, right? If you're running a business right now that it's dependent on you, like solely as the owner, that can be very, very risky, right? Especially if that's your solo source of income and you're dependent upon that, right? And while everybody's got to operate that way for some period of time, right? Either you get right out of law school and you open your own firm, or most likely the other scenario, which is you go and work for somebody else and then eventually you break out and open your own firm. Everybody has to operate that way for a while. I guess unless you go and buy an existing practice, probably a little more rare. Um, and while you do, you really want to protect yourself, right? With the proper insurances, things like that. But while you're in that mode, I would say, in my opinion, as soon as possible, right? Grow now, delegate now. Um, you know, I mean, sure, there's solo attorneys out there that they're solos. They start their own firm and they operate as solos for their entire life, and they retire that way, and they live and ride off into the sunset, so to speak, and go to retirement and live happily ever after. Um, or some of them work till they die and they die at their desk. That's an attorney saying too, right? But to me, I think that's very risky, right? Again, everything is dependent on you, especially with nowadays we all live longer, and it seems like, at least in the uh, people that are in my life, mental illnesses, as far as like dementia and things like that, seems to be more prevalent. So you can definitely run into some dangerous territory there if you're just a solo.
Yeah, just just the stress and the pressure and not having anybody to kind of take any sort of the pressure off of you. Yeah,
Yep.
absolutely. Obviously, firms are going to experience ups and downs, and growth spurts, especially early on. How does consistent forecasting protect a firm from too much of that? I don't know, chaos, if you will.
Yeah, so I think really forecasting and seeing where you're going super super important. You can definitely experience ups and downs, and it's kind of like a roller coaster, right? And depending on your area of law, especially if you litigate and have settlements coming in, and you have just a ton of money coming in 1 month, right? That can again really put you on a roller coaster of ups and downs. But if you're forecasting forward and well, this is what I have coming in over the next few months, and you can see, hey, maybe in February, we're forecasting that we're not going to have enough sales coming in the door to cover all of our bills. Well, we're recording this here in November. Now you have 3 months that you can start working on, hey, we've got to bank some cash, right? We got to bank some money. And so the further down that road that you can see and keeping your expenses really consistent, the better off that you're going to be, the more time that you're going to have to make changes and make adjustments. And so forecasting plays a really key role that even if you're going to have those ups and downs, at least you can work on managing it.
When you sit down with an attorney who maybe is just still doing it all, or at least has their hand in all the pots of the firm, are there any specific areas that you will encourage them to delegate first?
Yeah, so one of the first ones is definitely legal work. I mean, if I'm working with a law firm owner and that's what they love to do, they just love to do legal work. They don't love to do the other parts of the business. Then that's a completely separate plan, and we'll work on that. But usually, if I get an attorney that's an owner of a firm and you're doing 20 to 30 hours of legal work a week, delegating that and hiring somebody that's experienced, that knows your practice area, and then just bringing them to your firm. And the only training that has to happen is just training them on your processes that might be a little bit different from their last firm. But those 20 to 30 hours off of your plate, now you can go and generate more work and fill up the attorney that you just hired after they get fully kind of settled in and get them ramped up. And you can also take on some work as well. And again, that's really going to increase your revenue and how much sales you're bringing in, and that's going to start you on your way to growing your firm. So you should, if you're setting things up properly, you're paying them properly, you're charging properly, they're tracking their hours properly, you're going to have a return on that person that's doing that billable work for you. You could always review it, right? Just to make sure that it's a good work product. But that's one of the first things, because then that opens up your time for a lot of other things.
On the flip side of that, are there certain areas where you recommend an owner stay either heavily involved or do it completely themselves?
Yeah, I think one of the biggest things it seems like is a lot of times marketing and consultations seems to be one of the last things to go. Clients want to talk to the owner.
Hmm.
That's just kind of how it is. And that is, to me, I think that's a special privilege, right? And there does come a point where you grow a big enough team, you grow a big enough brand that that's not going to happen, right? Um, when you walk into the hospital, you get one of the doctors, right? You don't get the CEO of the hospital or things like that, right? So marketing and the consultations seem to be the part that gets let go more towards the end, which makes sense. But eventually, that probably needs to transition to more than just you as well, uh, as you build a team, so that you're not the only brand name at the firm.
Is there a danger of when you delegate too much stuff away that you're not quite connected to what's happening at the firm anymore?
I think there can be a danger of that, right? If we've got, not the right processes in place and not, setting standards and setting the right numbers to track, right?
Hmm.
Again, I think everything that you delegate, you've got to have that baseline and set a standard for this is what I expect. and then have the proper management and reporting structure in place to make sure that that's happening, right? And then when it's not happening, you as the owner, it's really owner, CEO, it's really your job to be a resource and to help problem solve for whatever department that may be in. So I think that can be dangerous. And I think if you're also kind of monitoring it, especially more at the beginning when you first hand it off, those challenges can definitely be overcome. And you can have a good pulse on everything without being involved in everything.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Do you have like an approach or anything when you sit down with a CEO or owner who's just really resistant to giving up anything? Like, do you have like I don't know, how do you coach them in those situations?
Yeah, first thing I ask them is, what do they love to do, right? And 10 years from now, or I just 10 years from now, 5 years from now, whatever it is, right? If they could only do like one or two jobs, what would it be, right? And for every owner that I talk to, it's different, right? Some of them, it's, well, I want to manage the legal work side of the house. I want to train attorneys and staff. I want to, help there be better lawyers in the community. So that's what I want to have my hand on. Okay, fine, right? And let's build around that. For others, it's, I love to get out and speak and educate on my area of law. I love to generate the work and the leads. And then I love to sit down and, do consultations and meet with the clients face to face and figure out, can we help them? Or is it not a right fit? But if we can help them, I love, sitting down, meeting with them, shaking hands, and, signing the agreements, right? So that's where I always start. And that's where I encourage everybody listening to this to start is list two things that you love to do, and then list two things that you hate to do. Because there's going to be things that you hate to do for sure. Without question. And obviously, for your sanity and your work-life balance and your enjoyment, the sooner that you can get the things that you hate to do off your plate, the better off you're going to be as well. But that's really what I have them focus on. And then, after you've listed those four things out, list everything else that you're doing, right? And those are all the hats and things. I call them hats, or those are all the jobs, right, that you've got to get off your plate eventually, and you've got to hire and delegate for.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, makes sense for sure. All right. Well, thanks for watching the Legal CFO with Ryan Kimler. If you're ready to get financial clarity for your law firm, visit netprofitcfo.com. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel and leave us a review. Ryan, I always love chatting with you. You always give such great advice. Thanks so much.
Yes, thank you for having me. This was great.
Thanks for watching. Be sure to hit that like and subscribe button and leave us a review in the comments.